What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about why Canada will not help the United States with our war with Iran. So today, I really want to check out some comments that the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, made when asked about Canada's stance on the current U.S. war with Iran and this whole situation. And, you know, I gotta say, I am very curious to hear like the Canadian perspective on what the US is doing with this whole conflict. So, let's take a look.
Yesterday, Secretary General Rutte announced big new capabilities for NATO: airlift, refueling,
Yeah.
area surveillance. Um, but when President Trump arrived, all he talked about was the refusal of the Allies to participate in the attack on Iran. Is there a mismatch between alliance leaders who want to talk about what NATO can do and a president who's fixated on what NATO won't do?
Huh. Huh. I feel like you can already tell based on Mark Carney's like expression and his behavior that he's not enjoying these questions. It's almost like the reporter is trying to bait him into like answering like a controversial question, especially since the relationship between Canada in particular and the United States is already pretty strained. And this reporter is like, what do you think of Trump coming into the NATO summit and demanding that all of you help with the US war with Iran? Um with that being said, as sticky a question it may be, I'm actually extremely curious to hear how Mark Carney is going to answer this.
The alliance is a defensive alliance. It's not an offensive alliance.
That that's really true. That's a really good point. First of all, it's already like completely absurd for Donald Trump to barge into the NATO summit and demand that all of our allies help the United States with a stupid, pointless, dragged on war with Iran that we created for no good reason. After Donald Trump swore, he, after Donald Trump literally campaigned on not starting any new stupid wars. Go figure. That wasn't true. But just the audacity to like go to our allies with such a disrespectful demand. It's like this is not like World War II. Where like there's reasons that other countries might want to get involved in such a thing. Uh, this is something that we have totally done unto ourselves, and it is hurt. And of course, it turns out that it's doing a ton of damage to the United States, what we're doing in Iran, and a lot of damage to a lot of other countries, actually, as far as like getting energy and oil and stuff. Extremely annoying situation. Crazy to demand. Like that other countries get dragged into this whole mess, and that's how I would answer. I guess that's how I would answer that. Not as tactfully as Mark Carney, who uses logic, as far as the NATO alliance definition goes. It's a defensive alliance, which I know. Such a good response, such a lawyer type of response. Like, how can you even rebut that? It is not for this alliance is not for helping random NATO countries with wars they start. It's for helping. It's to help defend NATO countries who are under attack and need help. So that's a great answer. Like, yeah, you could end it right there. That's really all the explanation that you would have to say to Donald Trump, although I am sure he would not accept that as an answer. But 100% factually true.
And in a world of evolving threats, it's important that we, as your question suggests, that we put ourselves in a position where we can defend our citizens. And that defense, that robust defense, has to be highly, highly credible to deter attacks and prevent the type of suffering we're seeing in Ukraine.
What was it? So I think he's just kind of saying that helping the United States with our war against Iran would just go against the values of NATO and go against, what NATO stands for and its credibility, and perhaps even taking resources away from it to actually defend against legitimate threats that it was constructed to do rather than help with these pointless, stupid. Yeah, I mean, even as an American, you can tell my attitude towards this whole thing. I think it's actually representative of what a lot of Americans are starting to feel. This whole war with Iran, that has been, to say it's been a disaster for us is an understatement. Like, and I think you know that because even Trump knows that because he was trying his ass off. He was trying so hard to end this conflict like a few weeks ago, drawing up a peace, a deal, some kind of deal, which offered nothing for the United States and so many concessions for Iran. And they didn't even end up accepting it, but just the fact that Donald Trump was willing to offer such a horrible deal for the US to end this conflict shows that actually Donald Trump knows it looks terrible, it's going terrible, it's awful, terrible. Like, so, yeah, I think a lot of Americans think that, and I was looking kind of for like the Canadian perspective on what you think about our war, and this is more like the very logistical, very like sensible, like, no, we're not helping the United States with your stupid little war because that is not our job, and that's not our problem. We didn't do that, and we're under no obligation to help, and we're not. That's more what. So it's kind of the gist of it.
Is there is there more to do in order to be in that position? Without question. And what Canada looks to in these meetings and all related meetings and interactions is to identify where those gaps are and help to close them and to do so in a transparent way. And that's a
I also feel like he's kind of driving the question in a different direction. Because let's be honest, like I was trying to say at the beginning, this is a sort of a controversial question. It's almost designed to put Mark Carney in hot water with Trump. And I think he is doing his best to kind of steer it away from that very diplomatically.
process. That's an iterative process. Yes, the president of the United States, had a desire for more offensive support with respect to the Iran conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he did. He does have a very offensive driven attitude towards Iran. I mean, there's no bombs dropping on the United States right now, but I mean, you can question so many of the motivations for going into Iran, attacking Iran, screwing up the Strait of Hormuz and the oil situation, and it's such a mess. The motivations were extremely questionable to begin with, and now what's so questionable has been the execution of this mission. I mean, yeah, like there's no bombs dropping in the US. The United States literally killed, I think, 175 or more school children because we accidentally dropped a bomb on a school for little girls in a town in Iran. And that has been totally swept under the rug, no explanation. Just, oops, wrong intel. I thought there was a terrorist there. Is that a school? Are those children? They're blown up. They're dead. With just like that. It's unbelievable and really like not a story that you hear much in the US, or probably because we're ashamed and we should be, but there should be more explanation on those types of things. It's just, yeah. So just the damage we've done to innocent civilians, to our own economy, to the world economy, to our credibility. You can tell. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this war myself.
It wasn't a direct ask of Canada. We didn't have the capabilities. We're not relevant from a base perspective in that theater.
Okay, so that's another reason. Canada feels like doesn't really have much to offer in terms of supporting a war in Iran. He won't straight up come out and say he just doesn't agree with the war. Like I will openly just say I don't agree with the war. I think it's ridiculous, stupid, horrible thing. That's caused nothing but bad things for us and Iran, frankly. Uh, Mark Carney, as a world leader, has to be a little more tactful in what he says. Thank God. So I get it, but he hasn't outright condemned it.
And that's between him and specific NATO allies. Look, I think the president, as did President Obama, which I just said to someone else, is looking for a shift of the burden within NATO. That's appropriate. That is happening. That's gaining momentum. As part of the point I made to President Trump when we spoke a few days ago, is that it's not just he's winning the argument; he's won the argument. Countries recognize that they need to take more responsibility, see the direct threats. Now, the question for NATO, and part of what we will discuss and part of the point I will make.
Really giving a lot of credit to Trump. And it's like, I also find myself probably going, what's the best way to say this? I think Trump deserves all the criticism and more for all the things that he does. But like every now and then, I suppose, just like a blind squirrel finds an acorn, like he does something that makes any kind of sense. And I guess Mark Carney is good at like finding those little nuggets and giving Trump a little credit. Just because, I guess, because it's deserved, perhaps, but probably more for diplomacy's sake. Or they're talking about like Trump's and Obama's like wish for NATO to become less reliant on the United States, which ironically, given the current landscape of you know the reputation of the United States, and I think NATO is probably, a lot of those countries are more than happy to lower their reliance on the United States and our military or protection, or and I guess Mark Carney agrees with that as well.
In the room with my 3.5 minutes of time, so which is about a quarter of the length of my normal answer, I know, so I apologize. Is that those shifting burdens are going to be, in our view, most effectively done. Obviously, with greater capacity, we have to spend more, we have to build these capacities, that's what we're doing, but in ways that recognize the regions in which we operate. So for Canada, North America, obviously, up until now, NATO has said, well, North American security, that's your problem. Well, North American security, and particularly Arctic security, and remind everybody that, we've got 15% of the world's coastline.
Sure.
Arctic security is not a flank, it's a front. With the shift in the threats and Russia as a direct adversary.
Okay, so It's sort of related to the U.S. war with Iran, sort of getting off topic a little bit, just talking about how NATO is trying to spend more on military, on and sort of reallocating and rethinking about what the responsibilities of NATO are. In like he's talking about the Arctic and Russia, how important that's being. It's not just a North American thing to worry about. It's like a thing everyone needs to worry about. And yeah, it's funny because I would actually think Trump kind of likes. I know Trump has said he wants NATO to spend more, to take care of itself more, to not rely on the United States, which is funny because we expect NATO to do a ton for us, just like he's demanding help with Iran. So you trying to use NATO incorrectly, for one thing. But I think in sort of a backwards way, Donald Trump probably likes NATO countries having to rely on the United States. So, I don't know. I know he sometimes he kind of says one thing and then says the other exact opposite thing, means one thing, means another thing. So, yeah, interesting. But anyway, from what I took away from this is Canada and the Prime Minister Mark Carney made a very, very reasonable, logical, tactful response to why aren't you helping the US war with Iran? And Trump was literally demanding it at the NATO summit. And Mark Carney came up with a great answer, the correct answer. It's just like the truth. That's not our responsibility, and it never was, and it's not the expectation. And Canada is not getting involved in that. And the resources of NATO need to go to what it's meant for. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, even if I would have liked to hear him kind of like crap on the war and hear like that perspective, but this was interesting and it makes sense. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts, especially if you're Canadian. What are your thoughts on all this? On Trump's behavior in NATO and demands and um, Canada not getting involved with the U.S. war with Iran and the Canadian perspective on all this. That'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.